Greetings, salutations, respect, and love to all of you within the sound of my voice, which, thanks to this incredible technology, that's the whole world, boys and girls. I hope you had a great weekend. I had a fantastic weekend listening to jazz rock, and jazz fusion all weekend, so it was a little different experience for me. I haven't done that in a while, binged on jazz, but, I grew up in a jazz home. My dad was a jazz musician. He had played with Wayne King and Stan Getz, touring dates and stuff like that. So anything with horns, I grew up really listening to and enjoying. A lot of Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Dave Brubeck in the house. We're talking about jazz fusion here, and it's kind of interesting how the timelines between prog and fusion seem to sync up a little bit. You go to the year 1969, and the big moment was when Miles Davis started using electric instruments with In a Silent Way. But before that, you had Charles Lloyd at the 1966 Monterey Jazz Festival playing with electric instruments. Larry Coryell back in 1967 was doing stuff with a band called the Free Spirits. But everybody seems to point to Miles Davis and, that album for that turning point. A lot of people who played with Miles then went on to do other things. And I think it's interesting because In a Silent Way sold like 5 times more than any other Miles Davis album. So, the record labels were very, very interested in this new genre of music. And as a result, you see Columbia signing a lion's share of these bands. My experience with jazz rock, jazz fusion is primarily throughout the 70s. I listened to a lot of it, but honestly, once it started devolving into soft jazz and the Spyro Gyras and the Kenny G's of the world, David Sanborn and all that stuff, I kind of stopped listening to it. And I don't really feel qualified to talk about any of the modern jazz artists, but some of the classic artists in Prog archives who are considered jazz rock / fusion. Santana. Yeah, early Santana, definitely that Latin jazz feel. The first 3 Journey albums, Dixie Dregs. Prog Archives lists Jeff Beck as jazz fusion. I don't know about that. Solution, that great band from Scandinavia. Passport, Turge Ripdale, The Flock. There were plenty of jazz bands operating in Italy. Daedalus, Ardo and Mestieri, Parigio, DFA, and more recently, Accordo dei Contrari. Not going to talk about those bands. And like I said, there's a whole slew of modern jazz and jazz fusion. I really don't listen to a lot of it. Diwa, Budjana, Marbin, Ghost Rhythms. I've heard music from those people I really enjoy. Dean Watson, Simon Phillips with his Protocol. Hooffoot, really good. Panzer Ballet. Kenzo, big fan of Kenzo. Hiromi Uhara, that great Japanese keyboardist. Elephant 9, Frog Cafe, all listed as jazz fusion on Prog Archives. Not talking about those. I'm starting right now with number 25, and it's the Keith Tippett Group from 1971. Yeah, this cat had been involved with King Crimson. He was never really officially a member of King Crimson, but did play on a number of their early albums. On this album, you've got the great Roger Dean album cover. You've also got Elton Dean on sax and Robert Wyatt on drums. So very soft machiney, but just an incredible album. I love it. At number 24, it's Stanley Clarke's School Days from 1976. The great bass player's 4th solo album, and he recruits a whole bunch of great players on this. John McLaughlin, David Sanchez, George Duke, Steve Gadd. This was probably his most popular album, his most famous album, and I remember listening to this a whole bunch as a kid. Really like it. At number 23, let's go to the UK and Nucleus with their 2nd album. We'll talk about it later. Once again, you've got a Roger Dean cover, so he was clearly part of this jazz rock movement before he cut his bones with Yes and all that other symphonic stuff. But Nucleus, what a great band, man. Their first couple albums, just incredible. Ian Carr is the leader of this group on trumpet. You got a couple people who would later on be associated with Soft Machine, Carl Jenkins and John Marshall. You got Chris Spedding on guitar on this record. Same dude who produced the early Sex Pistols records. Just a great, great band. I love Nucleus. At number 22, let's go to Herbie Hancock's Crossings from 1972. This was the second of three Mwandishi albums that he put out in 70. One, he put out Mwandishi, and then 73 Sextant, so there are three of those. I could have gone with, some of the Headhunters type albums, but I really like Crossings. There's 3 songs on this. Side 1 is all one track, Sleeping Giants. And then side 2, you got Quasar and Water Torture. Fantastic, just a great album. At number 21, going back to the UK, and the band If. Yeah, their debut came out in 1970. These guys put out exactly 8 albums in the 70s. The first 3 were on Capitol here in the US. I guess they were on Island over there in the UK. The first 3 actually charted in the US. These guys were led by a dude named Dick Morrissey, and this band toured incessantly in the US and the UK, trying to, break, but it never happened for them. But a good band, and their first couple records are fantastic. At number 20, let's go to Scandinavia and Secret Oyster from Denmark. Yeah, these cats put out 4 albums in the 70s. They're all really, really good. I'm spotlighting their second album, Secret Sun, or Sea Sun rather, from 1974. All instrumental, really good stuff. From Denmark. If you want something a little bit different in your prog, if you like your fusion, a little bit more continental, that's the way to go. At number 19, formed in 1967 in New York City. It's Blood, Sweat, and Tears. What are these guys doing here? Well, they're listed as jazz rock, and their first few albums are fantastic. The first album was led by Al Cooper. He lasted 1 album, and then they recruited the great David Clayton Thomas for their second album, their self-titled album from 1968. Just love this thing. It won Grammys. It sold millions of copies. You know the album. It's fantastic. Spin and wheel. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that. At number 18, let's go to Finland and the first solo album from the great bass player from the band Wigwam. It's Pekka Bajola's Haraka Bia Loi Puku, which is better known in English-speaking territories as Be the Magpie. This thing came out in 1974. And if you are not familiar with Pekka Bajola's incredible musicianship, this would be a real good place to start, boys and girls. One of my favorite bass players, just incredible, fantastic album. At number 17, it's Jean-Luc Ponty and Enigmatic Oceans from 1977. This was smack dab in the middle of his great run. He put out Imaginary Voyager in 1976 and Cosmic Messenger in 1978, and then this one right in the middle. Those are probably my 3 favorite albums from him. This is such a great album. You've got both Alan Holdsworth and Daryl Strummer on guitar. Wow, that's a great 1-2 punch if you need a rhythm and guitar player. You got Steve Smith on drums. This is a phenomenal album. At number 16, one of the originators, man. It's Larry Coryell. Yeah, this guy is often cited as one of the originators of the jazz fusion subgenre, and why not? But today I'm talking about the 11th House from 1974. Everybody was putting together these prog jazz fusion supergroups. You had Weather Report, and you had Mahavishnu Orchestra, and you had Return to Forever. So Larry Coryell got a little bit jealous, I guess, and decided to do the same thing and come up with a band called the 11th House. This one was the first one, 74. There were 2 albums by the 11th House in 75, Planet End and Level 1. And then in 1976, you had Aspects. I like all of them, man. But that first one is the one that really got my goat. At number 15, let's go to Czechoslovakia. This band is not jazz fusion, but they're listed as jazz rock / fusion on Prog Archive. So I'm including it because I love this album. It's Modre Effect, and the album is Svitani from 1977. This album's ridiculous. I love this album. It's real jazzy, but it's very Yes-like, right? So I don't even know why these guys are listed in Prog Archives as jazz rock, but I think some of their other albums might be a little jazzier, but I don't care, man, if this is cheating or not. I just wanted to slip this one in here because it's a phenomenal album that everybody needs to listen to at number 14. How about Al Di Meola's Elegant Gypsy from 1977? Wow, what a peak year for jazz rock and fusion. Yeah, this is just an incredible album. He's joined by Paco de Lucia, who he had done some other albums with. That, what was that, Friday Night in San Francisco record? That was so great. Jan Hammer is on this record. Steve Gadd's on this record. Lenny White's on this record. Anthony Jackson plays bass. Just a really, really great record. A classic at number 13. It's Coliseum 2 and their second album, Electric Savage. This band formed in the ashes of Coliseum 1. There's only one member in common, and that is the great John Heisman. He's joined by Gary Moore on vocals and guitar, Don Airey on keyboards, and John Mole on bass. What an incredible band. They put out 3 albums. 1976's Strange New Flesh, this one here, and then in 1977 they also dropped War Dance. All 3 are great. Yeah, John Heisman, man, incredible. Neil Peart was once asked, what's it feel like to be the greatest drummer on earth? He said, I don't know, ask John Heisman. At number 12, it's Soft Machine. Yeah, they're listed as Canterbury, but yeah, these guys are jazz rock. They didn't even have a guitar player in the band in the early incarnations, but I'm going to focus on Soft Machine's 4th. I could have done the 3rd. I love 3rd a lot. I love 4th. I even like 5th, but this was the classic lineup. Elton Dean on sax, Mike Rutledge on keyboards, Hugh Hopper on bass, and Robert Wyatt on drums. You know, later on, this band would get all kinds of different people, man, from Andy Summers to, Alan Holdsworth. There's a new version of the band that just dropped a new album, led by John Etheridge and Theo Travis, still going strong. I love Soft Machine. Yeah, are they Canterbury? Are they jazz rock? Is there really that much of a difference? At number 11, it's Brand X, and I'm going with their first album, Unorthodox Behavior, because that's the first one I bought. Yeah, I was a huge Genesis fan. So, of course, when I was hearing about Phil being in a new jazz band, I had to pick it up, and I really do like it a lot. It's John Goodsell on guitar, Robin Lumley on keyboards, and the great Percy Jones on bass, and of course, Filthy Animal Collins on drums. Fantastic. I could have gone with Moroccan Roll, but this was my first exposure to Brand X, and you know how that goes, man. And now we're in the top 10, my favorite jazz rock and fusion albums. At number 10, it's Bruford's second album, One of a Kind from 1979. These were songs that were supposed to be part of a second UK album that never happened. A couple of these songs actually were getting played by UK in concerts, but then, Bill Bruford and Alan left the band, and we're left with Bruford, which, for my money is every bit as good. I love this album. It's just fantastic. We just ranked the Yes solo albums, and this one ranked pretty high, definitely at number 9. It's Steely Dan's Asia. Again, are these guys fusion? No, they're not fusion, but they're listed in the jazz rock category, so I'm putting it all together. And Asia, their 6th album from 1977, of course. Just incredible. I mean, there's like 40 different musicians on here. Donald Fagen and Walter Becker never did it better. Larry Carlton's on this album. Steve Gadd's on this album. Timothy B. Schmidt and Michael McDonald are on this album. Everybody's on this album. And Gary Katz did the finest production job in the history of recorded music, and the dude didn't even win a Grammy for it. It's just sad. At number 8, here's an album that really isn't fusion at all. I could argue it's hardly jazz, but it's Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays and As Falls Wichita, So Falls Wichita Falls from 1981. Oh man, I love this album. I've always loved this album. back in the day, I was working at a record store in Florida, and every single time I put this record on, man, I sold like 2 or 3 copies, and why not? Side one is all just like this really cool new age space jazz. Never heard anything like it. Was some of the most unique music I've ever heard. And then side two is a little bit more straightforward with, a little more straightforward, shorter songs like Ozark, September 15th, which is, I guess, a song about Bill Evans. It's For You, just fantastic. I love that record. Just great. At number 7, it's Weather Report, and I'm going with Black Market from 1976. Could have gone with Heavy Weather. I could have gone with a lot of records. This is their 6th album, and primarily I picked it because it's got some people that I wanted to talk about, not least of which is Jaco Pastorius on bass here. Yeah, Alphonso Johnson's also on here, so we've got 2 bass players on, different tracks. You got Chester Thompson on this thing. Of course, Weather Report is Joe Zawinul and Wayne Shorter. Those are the 2 main guys who were with the Weather Report all the way through. And what a great, fantastic record this is. Jaco Pastorius, man, and Chester Thompson. That's all I need to hear. They're on the same record. I'm buying it at number 6. It's Return to Forever and their classic Romantic Warrior from 1976. Yeah, this is not their first album. I think this is actually like their 6th album. The band was created and formed by Chick Corea. Those early albums were definitely more straightforward jazz, but as time went on and they kind of solidified their lineup, they became more of a jazz rock thing. Chick Corea is joined by Lenny White on drums, Stanley Clarke on bass, and Al Di Meola on guitar. Yeah, can you tell me a better lineup than that? I'm waiting. I'm all ears, man. And the reason this is so high is that final track, The Duel of the Jester and the Tyrant. I love that thing. Now we're in the top 5. At number 5, I'm putting Frank Zappa Hot Rats on here. Why not? He's not a jazz fusion artist per se, but Hot Rats is just nothing but a jazz fusion masterpiece. 1969, so he was so far ahead of the game, it's not even funny. This is all instrumental. Of course, there's that one song, Willie the Pimp, that Captain Beefheart sings on. But this is primarily Frank Zappa and Ian Underwood. They're the 2 primary drivers on this album. Ian began his association with Frank Zappa earlier that year with We're Only In It for the Money, helping write that, which is probably my favorite Zappa album. But he was with them all the way through the 70s, all the way through to Zoot Allures, big part of the Zappa sound, and I just love Hot Rats. What a great album. At number 4, I'm going with Chicago's 2nd album from 1970. Is Chicago a jazz rock band? Yeah, a lot of people remember Chicago from, their schmaltzy balladry from the 80s. But I'm telling you, man, all through the 70s, Chicago was a fantastic band. If you don't think they've got jazz rock and fusion in their DNA, I challenge you to listen to Chicago 7 from start to finish and tell me about it. But Chicago 2, my favorite Chicago album. I love CTA. I love this one here. Chicago 3 was great. Chicago 5, their first single disc, blew my mind in 72. I love Chicago 6. Chicago 7 is the real jazzy one, but I'm sticking with Chicago 2, man, primarily because of that side 2 suite. What's it called? Ballad for a Girl in Buchanan. Just amazing. At number 3, how about Billy Cobham Spectrum from 1973? Oh, man, this album is fantastic. He is joined, the great drummer Billy Cobham here is joined by bass player Lee Sklar, who a lot of people know because he played with Phil Collins for years and years, Jan Hammer on keyboards, and you've got Tommy Bolin on guitar. Tommy Bolin from the James Gang, American guitarist. I don't know how that happened, but wow, does this work, man. I need to check out more Billy Cobham albums. Honestly, this is the only one I've ever heard, and I know he's got a few more solo albums after this, but wow, I just love it. At number 2, for the best jazz rock and fusion album of all time, how about Mahu Vishnu Orchestra's Birds of Fire. Yes, boys and girls, I almost went with the first one, the Intermountain Flame. That was really, really good. But I love early Mahu Vishnu. The first two albums are just perfect. John McLaughlin, Jan Hammer, Jerry Goodman, Rick Laird, and Billy Cobham. Yeah, I just asked for a better lineup than Return to Forever. Maybe that's one. I don't know. Yeah. Mahu Vishnu Orchestra went through a lot of lineup changes after this album, and the stuff they released after this was all good, but Birds of Fire, man, no, only one jazz rock fusion album better, and I'm going with 1970s Bitches Brew. Yeah, I could have gone with In a Silent Way, but I just think Bitches Brew from 1970s even better. And why is it better? Well, the songs are longer. That doesn't hurt. I mean, Pharaoh's Dance is 20 minutes long, and then you follow that up with the title track, Bitches Brew, which is 27 minutes long. And they're awesome. They're not just long, they're long and they're awesome, You got Wayne Shorter, you got Billy Cobham, you got John McLaughlin, you got Joe Zawinul, you got Chick Corea, you got Lenny White. All the cats playing on this album ended up doing great, great things later on. And thank God that, Columbia was wise enough to start signing a lot of these bands because, the 80s were just so inflected with prog. But you know what? They were so inflected with jazz too, all the way through the 70s and the 80s. It just made its impact felt throughout popular music. But I kind of, like I said, I kind of lost interest in the jazz. There's a lot of jazzier type of prog bands out there that I listen to, but I wanted to focus on those 25 albums that I absolutely love and adore. And anyway, let me know in the comments what jazz, rock, and fusion albums I missed, which ones I need to listen to, because honestly, there's just, I probably only heard 2% of the fusion albums out there, at best. So, take this list with an enormous grain of salt. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a good one. I love you. Peace in the Middle East, free Tibet, and guess what, boys and girls? God save the king! Save the king! Save him! He needs saving, boys and girls. Don't be upset at me. You guys know I'm not, It's all in fun. It's all in jest for those people from Ireland and other parts of the world where maybe they don't like King Charles III that much. I don't know the guy, so hey, I'm just playing around. Anyway, I'll see you freaks soon. I'm gonna be doing some album reviews later on this week. It's gonna be great. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Peace.